From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Issue 1, Barack back Biden?
The vice president is somebody who has already run for president twice. He's been on a national ticket through 2 election cycles now, both in 2008 and in the re-election of 2012. And so I think you could make the case that there is probably no one in American politics today who has a better understanding of exactly what is required to mount a successful national presidential campaign.
That's White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest, seemingly endorsing a Joe Biden presidential candidacy, reaffirming President Obama's belief that selecting Joe Biden as vice president was his best political decision. Mr. Earnest also appeared to offer an implicit rebuke of Hillary Clinton. After all, Mrs. Clinton also served in President Obama's cabinet as Secretary of State between 2009 and 2013. And get this, Mr. Earnest suggested Mr. Obama might endorse Joe Biden if he enters the 2016 presidential race. With Hillary Clinton struggling in the polls and allegations that she mishandled classified material on her private email server, some Democrats believe the party needs another candidate. Mr. Biden has allowed these activists to build a buzz around his name as a possible alternate. Indeed, just last weekend, the vice president returned to Washington, D.C. from Delaware to meet with liberal Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. Miss Warren is seen as a potential Biden running mate. Question: if Joe Biden runs for the presidency, will President Obama support his candidacy? I ask you, Eleanor.
I think President Obama would love it if Joe Biden succeeded him. It would be a total vindication of 8 years of Obamaism transferred into Bidenism. But I strongly doubt that he will enter the primary race and vocally support either candidate before it becomes clear what's happening. I think Joe Biden wants to run. The only cure for once you get the presidential bug, apparently, is embalming fluid. This would be his 3rd time. I think people who know and actually love Joe Biden, there's a great deal of affection for him in Washington on both sides of the aisle. They don't want to see him humiliated. I'm not sure there's support out there, not sure he can raise the money. And on the other hand, what if there is a lot of support? Then you have a bruising fight within the Democratic Party, because Hillary Clinton is not going to go quietly. She's kind of sewed up the establishment. She's got a lot of money. So I think if Biden does get in the race, I don't think anybody begrudges him. It's his right, certainly, as a Democrat and as a sitting vice president. But I'm not sure in the end that this would be good for him or for the Democrats.
Well, without breaching Democratic protocol, what he can do is publicly lavish praise on Biden as a vice president, privately let it be known to key insiders that he'd like to see Biden win. Couldn't he do it that way? Sure he could.
Oh, he could, yeah. But the question is, does he want to be very public about this? You know, I think he wants to be even-handed. My theory is that he cares about, President Obama cares about his legacy more than anything else, and whether Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden wins, that helps his legacy. Whereas if the party is divided and goes into the convention as a fractious Democratic Party that we used to know in the olden days, then that won't be good for Obama's legacy.
So much if they're divided, because they were divided in 2008 and they won decisively. So,
but then then eventually it had to stop because he won decisively. Let's not forget that the one thing President Obama's legacy requires is for a Democrat to win the next election. And the single most poisonous split in the Democratic Party in living times was Clinton world versus Obama world. If he signals too much about Joe Biden, that roars back into life.
What will
and
it do to
that
Hillary?
only helps the Republicans.
What will it do to Hillary Clinton's campaign strategy if Biden does get in the race?
well, I think they're already in panic mode at the possibility of Biden getting into the race. But he has to do well. In past attempts at running for the presidency, Biden has not done well in the polls. He's not been as strong. He's not, far to the left of Hillary Clinton. He's not providing that alternative the way Bernie Sanders is. So he's just running really as the vice president, as someone who was Barack Obama's vice president, very popular president with Democratic primary voters. So there's his advantage.
Well, she's going to have to leave her attacks on the Republicans and focus on Biden.
But she can't attack him too much, because let's not forget he tragically lost his son, Beau Biden, the other day to cancer.
I'm assuming
he's a mourning.
This is all under the assumption that
they're friends, and they actually don't. I can't think of anything they disagree with. I think Biden's rationale is that coming from his middle-class background and his personal life, that he is a better messenger for the populist issues, particularly on the economy, than Hillary Clinton is. But you know, Clinton has been on a lot of issues, particularly concerning women and girls. She's been fighting for those issues.
But she's
for her
also
whole
created
life.
this opening for Biden with her own ethical problems, the issue with her email server, the upcoming Benghazi hearing in October is not going to help her. So she's created this opening for Biden, and that is the problem too.
Which might be good for her, though, because she does need to get out more. I mean, the fact is she's kind of a fortress mentality too much of the time, and not been more candid with reporters and other people she'd rather not spend time with.
Does Hillary already have too much of a head start on Biden, especially when it comes to fundraising?
Oh, she got a big head start, but that doesn't mean
also,
that Biden
organization. Hillary lost in 2008 in part because she didn't organize in the caucus
But
states. She's got people on the ground in all 50 states now.
Every
So,
block.
but Biden is the vice president. He has significant resources that he can put to work. And again, there's a lot of affection for him.
There are 700 or so bundlers who are sitting on the sidelines. And suppose they line up with Biden. Can they close the fundraising gap with Hillary?
I wonder if those bundlers will do anything without some kind of signal from the president. As you said at the beginning of the segment, what role he might play in all that in terms of making some kind of endorsement, but maybe not in front of the podium, but in some more a way that's a little more hidden from public view.
It's possible. One thing about Biden is that he does have tremendous appeal, without putting too fine a point on it, with white blue-collar males, which the Democratic Party has been weak on since the 60s. And that's something that, Bill Clinton did well in 92 and not quite as well in 96. But right now, that's the kind of thing that can really help Biden's side.
And he's more personable. He's better at the podium than Hillary Clinton is, who's often accused of being a little too remote or distanced herself from voters, and of course Biden could.
He's not a great campaigner. He's not a great campaigner.
He's got a lot of gifts, but he's got problems too. He's kind of a gaffe machine. Let's remember that.
We
love
about him.
Picture
good old
against
Joe.
Donald Trump. You got Donald Trump and a Biden. I mean, which
In
they
a
would
bowling
cancel
alley.
each other out, I guess, in some ways, in terms of the way they are at the podium. They're very spontaneous, very off the cuff. You know, it could be an interesting challenge, the two of them.
Speaking of the microphone, that's right.
Protocol dictates the sitting president's refrain from endorsing a candidate. But he can do a lot short of outright endorsement, can he not? And Obama has signaled that a Biden run conforms with his blessing. Correct?
You sound like you've been sitting there with your decoder trying to, I see the signal now. Josh Earnest's
the
ears are
public ought to know
wiggling.
about some of this and the war chest.
I still
and
see
52
no
of the war
reason.
chests are currently aligned for Hillary. 52, but there's a heck of a lot more than that. Hillary's campaign has raised $47 million.
Right.
That's been noted.
Right.
So there's still time for Biden to narrow the gap.
We're almost talking about real money here, aren't we?
Oh, we are.
But I still don't see what is in it for Obama to get on one side or the other. Certainly not right now.
Let's get out of this issue. We'll be back for we're going to be revisiting this a lot. I can feel that coming. On a political probability scale from 0 to 10, 0 meaning no likelihood whatsoever, and 10 meaning metaphysical certitude, how likely is it that Joe Biden will run? 0 to 10.
4.
4.
5.2.
5.2.
Yeah, slightly, ever so slightly leading toward running, simply because he loves it, can't help himself.
I'm about a 6.2.
I say 4, which is about 1 point higher than last week.
I will give him a 7.
All right.
Issue 2, chaos in the college.
It's just certain words that set people off. This is what Jerry Seinfeld was complaining about last week when he said college audiences just want to use these words. That's racist, that's sexist, that's prejudice. They don't even know what they're talking about. An opinion echoed by Chris Rock, who said he stopped playing colleges because of their unwillingness to offend anybody. And Larry the Cable Guy concurs. He said, "It really is a shame that nobody can handle comedy anymore."
Once citadels of free expression and occasional revolutionary ideas, today many American colleges have endorsed political correctness. Terms such as microaggression, describing an inadvertent act of offense, have entered the college lexicon, empowering an atmosphere of prior restraint on speech. And many colleges are also disinviting speakers in fear of offending certain elements of their student communities. In April 2014, for example, Brandeis University disinvited political theorist Ayaan Hirsi Ali after some Muslim groups raised protests. In October 2014, Scripps College disinvited conservative writer George Will following a column he wrote on women's issues. Also in 2014, comedian Bill Maher was disinvited from University of California at Berkeley after some students raised objections about his views on religion. What's clear is that American colleges are now increasingly reflexive in maintaining politically correct dialogue over controversy. And some say universities have lost sight of education's ultimate purpose. How do colleges and universities rationalize stifling the views some students find offensive? How do they rationalize it? I ask you, as a matter of fact, you wrote a piece for The Economist magazine, June the 13th, titled "Trigger Unhappy. Student Safety, quote unquote, has become a real threat to free speech on campus." What's the general proposition of this and related to what the matter at hand?
So people will remember the rows about political correctness going back decades, but something new is happening. So back in the 80s and the 90s, it was, you can't teach this text of kind of great dead white men sort of philosophy. You should teach more sort of relevant things. So it was what you could teach. There's a different row going on now, which is that students are so hypersensitive that they must be shielded from anything that upsets them or makes them feel kind of threatened. So this is just descriptions of rapes or descriptions of, even things like descriptions of racism or slavery in texts are seen as triggering. And you have demands to have trigger warnings so that students, before they're given a book, are told, be aware that this book describes racism or describes slavery, therefore you may find it very upsetting, and professors are told that some students may not wish to attend their class. So this idea of safety is taking over, and it's about making the most sensitive person in your classroom the arbiter of what may be taught.
Well, I don't think it'd be a lot of fun to attend a university that was so carefully monitoring what everybody said, because the whole point of going to college is to be exposed to a variety of viewpoints. But I can see where this is coming from. The style of parenting has changed. We're now into helicopter parenting, over-parenting. Parents who talk to their children every day while they're away at college. And so the colleges now feel like they have to provide this safe space for students, or else they're going to hear from the parents. So I think a lot of people are complicit in this change of attitude. I don't think it's a positive one.
Well, this is the mechanical way in which this problem has been solved by the collegiate hierarchy and I guess professorial community. Some colleges have designated specific areas on campus as the only places, so we got an area,
okay,
where controversial ideas can be expressed without sanction.
It's a free speech zone.
A free speech zone. Yeah. If controversial ideas are discussed outside of these free speech zones, the offending student can be sanctioned up to expulsion. What is this?
You know how the campus unrest began in the 60s with the free speech movement in Berkeley?
Yes.
Ironically enough, that was students wanting more free speech.
Yes.
Nowadays, we've got various establishments, either a student body group or some other interested parties who want to shield students from being exposed to too much in the world, which is the exact opposite of what universities are about. There's always some censorship going on campus. Back in my day, when I first came to the college, at the student radio station, they didn't allow anything that sounded like rock and roll. And I mean, that's how old I am. But but you know that changes. So now you've got a different set of.
Well, it also says a lot about what these promoters of this idea think about the quality of college students. And they imagine them, I guess, as frail creatures and they have to be sheltered from disturbing thoughts, lest they become afraid.
But you know, when I went
or
to
insecure.
When I went to a couple of colleges to report that column, what I really came away with was the impression that actually this is just an old-fashioned power struggle. You know, since there were colleges, since you've had students and professors, since the days of Socrates and Aristotle, young people have liked to try and grab power and frighten and intimidate their elders. This is just the latest iteration. I think this is actually really about students trying to grab power and declare themselves as the arbiters of what goes on.
Students rate professors, and so the professors live in constant fear that they're going to get bad rating. That's led to grade inflation and all of that.
Now.
But you know, to give the devil his due, students today grow up. We know much more about bullying and the bad effects of that. Students today have witnessed these massacres that go on in schools. So I think there is kind of an impulse. You want your child to be safe, and I think the colleges are responding to that. But we're talking about a kind of elite group of students who are protected and coddled. There are a lot of young people out there who see some horrible things before they reach even the age of 10.
But it's getting so, though. I mean, look at the censoring of Huckleberry Finn because it's got the N-word in it. This is something that has filtered up from middle schools all the way up to colleges, and that's just one book. There are many others that get censored because they might upset somebody, whereas maybe the author, like Mark Twain, wanted to upset you, but in a positive way. And so we shouldn't be too casual about this. But yeah, the censorship bug is always there. There are always thought police there, but we need to encourage people to be more open-minded.
Well, they're also going to be out in the real world soon. And so what is going to happen when these coddled young adults transition into the workforce?
Whatever happens,
bring that mindset with them. What's that going to mean for society as a whole going forward?
Whatever happens, this is an exit question to the American childhood maxim: sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. What happened to that?
They got a lawyer to sue you for that.
That's exactly right. In come the lawyers and the lawsuits. I think that is part of all
lawyers,
this.
the lawsuits.
And that hurts.
Now there's an angle.
That hurts.
Ooh, there's money to be made here. Hey, Herman, meet me down at 6th and 24th. Let's get over to that college.
In my school, I was attacked with sticks and stones. So back in my neighborhood, I was attacked with sticks and stones.
Words can be very cutting. But I think people have to learn to handle that.
Sure they do. And these kids are up to it. They want it. They want controversy. They don't want to learn through controversy, a conflict of ideas.
They should all join the debate society, form their own McLaughlin Group.
Issue 3, Israel's migrant crisis. Between 43,000 and 50,000 African migrants and asylum seekers are in limbo in Israel. They came seeking escape from war and poverty, but Israel does not want them, fearing their presence undercuts Israel's existential nature as a Jewish state. Until recently, many of these migrants were held in challenging conditions at detention facilities in remote areas of Israel. But earlier this month, Israel's judiciary ruled that migrants who have been held for more than a year must be released, and now these migrants are desperately searching for work and housing. It is easier said than done. After all, under Israeli law, these migrants are not entitled to public support in welfare or health care and are banned from working in major cities like Tel Aviv and Eilat. Question: should Israel do more to support African migrants? Clarence, would you like to handle that?
Well, it's a very debatable subject, but it's more complex than a lot of us Americans know. For example, a lot of Africans are Jewish. There are around Somalia and Ethiopia, there have been controversies going on for 30, 40 years. And they are, for the most part, accepted into mainstream society, but they are having the same kind of problems with diversity in Israel that people have in other countries. And ultimately, they have to work it out in such a way that people can be mainstreamed, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's easier to say than to do. But I think for the most part, the Israeli people are trying to have a melting pot such as it is.
I was in Israel several years ago, and they were very proud of an Ethiopian Jewish community. Right. The difference now is they're being overwhelmed, just as much of Europe is being overwhelmed, and the refugees in Israel now are coming from the Sudan and Eritrea. They're refugees really kind of trying to escape from wars. I think when we look at Israel, though, we kind of expect them to be more welcoming because they were created, for people who were, escaping horrible conditions. But they're reacting like much of the rest of the world.
What do Donald Trump and Israel have in common regarding illegal immigration?
Well, Donald Trump, as we have heard, wants to stem the tide of immigration, illegal immigration coming over our borders. And so
they both insist that the illegals must return home.
Well, the problem is, too, that going back isn't a great option for these folks. I mean, and in Israel, Africa, parts of Africa now are so unstable and so inhospitable to people that they're, we have this huge migrant crisis.
Exactly.
I mean, the issue needs to be addressed there.
You have to make a big political distinction between economic migrants from a place like Mexico coming across the border to better themselves, and refugees.
Yeah.
And I think what we're really seeing here in Europe, in Israel, and lots of places is the world made a series of promises to welcome refugees at the end of the Second World War, which were great promises, but made at a time when the world was just a lot less mobile. And now the numbers of people who can turn up on your border to cash in that check are just gigantically larger. I think politics is becoming very ugly.
You've hit the nail right on the head, because Israeli officials insist that the migrants have come for economic reasons, and Trump says the same thing, and that they must return to their countries. Israeli parliament will soon take up legislation to provide funds for repatriation or to send the migrants to a third country.
Well, the Israeli Supreme Court ruled that you cannot hold people in this detention center that you pictured in the middle of the desert for more than a year, and so that they're now, the wheels of justice there understand what the right thing is to do.
Issue 4, misery in the market. Monday was a miserable day on the New York Stock Exchange. The Dow Jones dropped 588 points, and the S&P 500 dropped 78 points, and the Nasdaq dropped 179 points. Though the markets recovered some of these losses during the week, investor confidence has clearly been shaken by the market's performance over the past 2 weeks. Experts believe the downturn has 3 main causes. First, growing fears that China's economic slowdown and recent currency revaluations will reverberate into the global economy. Second, the belief that some U.S. stocks were overpriced and due for a price readjustment. Third, continuing doubts over the health of the U.S. economy. So, within 1 hour on Monday morning, 2 presidential candidates took to Twitter to offer their explanations. Donald Trump remarked, quote, "Markets are crashing, all caused by poor planning and allowing China and Asia to dictate the agenda. This could get very messy. Vote Trump," unquote. And Bernie Sanders tweeted, quote, "The results are in. Unfettered free trade has been a disaster for working Americans. It is high time we ended our disastrous trade policies," unquote. What explains the volatility of stock markets around the world, David?
The big picture is that people have had way too much confidence in the ability of the Chinese government to run their economy. And what we've seen for the last couple of weeks is that when the going gets tough, actually the Chinese government, they're not magicians, they're not wizards, they're just as incompetent as every other government and just as buffeted by market forces. So it's not really the crashing of the Chinese stock market as the dumb stuff, the knee-jerk stuff that China was doing when these forces hit.
And what happened?
Chinese growth rate is about 7%. How low is that?
Well, they need 7 sounds fantastic, but remember that the size of China, they need to create, tens of millions of jobs every year. And the Chinese growth numbers are very dodgy. But we need to separate out, a lot of countries have had a huge China bet for years. Countries like Australia, countries like Brazil, they would just dig up iron ore from the middle of Australia, ship it to China. The assumption was China would never stop building new airports, never stop building new high-speed railway lines, never stop building motorways. Well, at one point, eventually you have enough airports. And China now has enough airports. They need to change to a different kind of economy where people go to the shops and buy stuff and become more like a kind of regular middle-class consumer economy. Managing that transition is going to be very, very tough. We're now less confident that the Chinese government knows how to do it.
Yeah. Well, what happens in China doesn't stay in China. So the rest of the world is slowing down because this behemoth economy is slowing down. They've way overbuilt. They have ghost cities with skyscrapers, and nobody has the money to be able to move in. And but the fact that the 2 politicians, Sanders and Trump, each use these problems in China to validate their own approach, I don't put that much stock in either of them, to be honest. And I think that the U.S. stock market is very healthy. The Chinese stock market is really a Potemkin village. I mean, you've got, people are in there and they buy companies that don't really exist. They're shell companies. And I think what was astounding this week is the way the U.S. stock market rebounded. Go Apple.
There's also this, are Trump and Sanders right? Is China the main factor driving the instability? The answer, I think you will agree with that, is yes.
Well, it's the second largest economy in the world, and we are dependent on China buying our goods for our exports to survive in a healthy way. And I think with our own stock market, it's been on a bull run since 2006. Part of it is tied to the fact that we have these really low interest rates that may not remain low for very long. We've gotten that signal from the Fed. So I think this past week shines a spotlight on, that there could be some more volatility ahead for the stock market, just given our own economy. Our growth is not all that great either. We've got these artificially low interest rates that could change the way the stock market is moving, and I think people are now a little bit wary of what lies ahead for our own stock.
Is this getting much attention on the Hill?
Well, right now Congress isn't back in session yet, and so it's not really being talked about on the Hill yet. But when they do get back, of course, everybody is interested in what's going to happen with interest rates in the fall. I think you may see an increase, and that may change the way the stock market.
I don't think we will now.
Yeah.
Now with the current
Not
anxiety,
yet, maybe
the
December.
Fed is holding back now.
They're holding back, but at
Right.
least maybe by December we might see an increase.
Maybe January.
Eventually, we can't be at zero forever. Eventually.
I only disagree with folks who say that China is responsible for this. I think anxiety about China and their stock market and economy are responsible, especially earlier in the week. But the fact is, I think the more we look at this, the more we're going to see that China's stock market is a casino. That's the metaphor I use, that they're still new to capitalism.
Right.
They've only been doing this since around 1980. Right. And they still don't know, the stock markets don't just go up, they go down too. Right. And the fact that I'm not feeling anxious, whereas I was feeling anxious in 87
This is
and
not
in
like,
08.
I
am an American, I know how to get used to this kind of thing. China's still learning.
And never forget that the U.S. economy is very resilient. We at the McLaughlin Group offer our heartfelt sympathy to families of the two journalists brutally murdered in Virginia this week. Out of time. Bye-bye.